Welcome to HeForShe, Why Doing the Right Thing Matters. Today's webinar is sponsored by the American College of Surgeons International Relations Committee and the Women in Surgery Committee. We encourage you to ask questions and have a robust discussion about women in surgery and mentorship and allyship. There's a chat function, and we encourage you to ask questions during all the presentations for our question and answer session at the end. A recording of the webinar will be available, and we encourage you to share it with your colleagues. I have the pleasure of introducing one of our two moderators, Dr. HeForShe, Vice Chair of the International Relations Executive Committee.
Well, thank you, Kathleen, and welcome to everybody who's joining us from all over the world. It's actually exciting to give a webinar that reaches so many places across the world, and greetings to you from Boston in the United States today. This panel is a special one. It is sponsored by both the Women in Surgery Committee and the International Relations Committee of the American College of Surgeons. And it is about the he for she, specifically in the world of surgery. Let me start by a small personal story. When I was in surgical training, my wife was also in her critical care training as well, and we had our first kid. And it was very clear for us that both our careers mattered and mattered as much as each other. I remember, not very fondly if you want, me and her trying to alternate taking care of our very young kid post-call, haven't slept for many, many hours, but we decided to do it. And we decided to give more than half our humble salaries. We had very humble salaries for residents and training, and we used to give about 60% of our salaries at the beginning of the month for the nanny to take care of the kid. So none of us had to sacrifice for the other. That's what I call he for she in action. Before I introduce my co-moderator and the actual really brainchild of this panel, if you want, let me start by this quote from one of my favorite writers, Simone de Beauvoir. She said, "No one is more arrogant toward women, more aggressive or scornful than the man who is anxious about his virility." Today, we discuss why it's important for us men to be at the forefront of the he for she movement, at the forefront asking for gender equality across the world, and specifically in the world of surgery. And I hope we will have an interesting panel. I do encourage everybody to challenge us, to really go to where the money is, if you want, in terms of where the problems is, not only at the personal level, but at the system level issues that we need to fix for this to happen. So what is the he for she movement? It's really a global movement and solidarity movement that was started by the United Nations in search for gender equality in all aspects of life. So today we'll be focusing on surgery, and the real brainchild behind it is Dr. Hiba Abdelaziz, who is a consultant at Hamad General Hospital in Qatar. She's a very good friend of mine. She's the chair of the fellowship subcommittee of the International Relations Committee, and I'm very excited to have her take it from me from here, and I'll join you later in the Q&A questions. Hiba?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Kafrani. Today, we're gathered here to talk about he for she, and it's about doing the right thing. It's about surgeons supporting their fellow surgeons and colleagues advocating for their colleagues. I would like to welcome all of our audience to our first he for she webinar, which is championed and organized by the Women in Surgery Committee and the International Relations Committee as part of the American College of Surgeons' ongoing commitment to sponsoring and promoting gender equality. Today, we will hear from surgeons whose bonds as surgeons and as colleagues transcended gender and all and any variables. Our first speakers embody the he for she concept. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sanchez and Dr. Torregrosa. Dr. Sanchez is the chair of the Department of Surgery at Hospital Militar Central in Bogota, Colombia. He's also the president of the ACS Colombia chapter and the director of the Colombian Surgical Society. Dr. Lilian Torregrosa is the president of the Colombian Surgical Society. She's an ACS governor of the Colombia chapter, She's the chair of the Department of Surgery and a professor of and head of breast surgery at St. Ignacio University Hospital in Bogota, Colombia. We welcome you both.
Thank you so much. Let me try to share my presentation. Okay. On behalf of the Colombian chapter of the American College of Surgeons and the Colombian Association of Surgery, I would like to say thank you to the member of the ACS Women in Surgery Committee and the International Relations Committee for the opportunity to participate in this very important webinar. Thank you to collaboration to Tony Ortiz, Kathleen McClain, Dr. Paula Ferrada, and thank you for the support to the Dr. Canafari, of course. It's an honor to be here. The HeForShe movement began in Colombia in September 2015 under the initiative of several social sectors, mainly with a group of actors and singers led by Chabuco. The main goal of the campaign was to promote the gender equality. In January 2016, the mayor of the city of Bogota, Enrique Peñalosa, supports the HeForShe movement and establishes a series of decrees to promote the equal and development of the women. In March 2017, Colombian Army Commander Major General Ricardo Gómez Nieto recognized the HeForShe movement as a social priority and highlighted the very important role of women in Colombia's military forces. The first two women generals of the Colombian Army are promoted. Among them, my chief, Major General Clara Galvez, director of the Hospital Militar Central. The United Nations Office and the representation of the HeForShe movement in Colombia developed a work plan with the idea of having an equal participation in gender by 2030. But what about the movement in medicine and in surgery in Colombia? Let me show some ideas. Colombia chapter of the American College of Surgeons and the Colombian Surgery Association work in a close union in a very strong partnership. By 2012-2014, more or less, we come with to make a three-phase strategic plan to promote and stimulate women's equal inclusion as a surgeon. The first step, the sensitization. The second step, the support. The third step, the leadership. And the consolidation to go to the international representation. The first step, raising awareness mainly of new and future generation of doctors to be very important in the gender. We are already saying how every year we have a greater number of female surgeons as new member of our association and chapter. But more importantly, in medical school, for example, in my school, we see a very strong rise in women's participation. My university is a medical school that belongs to the military forces. Until recently, a very conservative school, and is currently 50-50. You can see in the slide. The change is now. In this way, the hospital is a reflection of the medical school. Currently, in the military hospital, the gender ratio for residents and fellows is 50-50. Even in the last matching for the resident in general surgery, 2021 class, 100% was won by the women. In the second step, it was very important to create and facilitate a space and activities to emphasize gender equality. And this step was strategic, the participation of Dr. Lilian Torregrosa, as a role model in high standard in quality and excellence. For all her leadership and excellent qualities, but above all as a mentor and example to follow, Dr. Lilian Torregrosa was elected as our president and at the same time as governor of the Colombia chapter. With his appointment, we are living a history moment for the Colombian and Latin American surgery, breast male hegemony. But we are very happy because we have a lot to choose from. Great women surgeries mentors we are example to follow that make up our board of directors. For example, Dr. Adriana Cordova, who is a chief the surgery department in Fuchs University, and Dr. Monica Bejarano, who is an editor of our journal. I am sure that in the future, they will be our president and governors. It's important to support the future generation. For example, in our very special program, the Surgeon for the New Colombian Scholarship, the selection is by competition and merit. 40 than 60, you can see the relation is for females. The woman general surgery is very important in our society. For example, in 3 years consecutively, one best Colombian surgery research. In the mentoring, it's important to example to follow. The women surgeon have stimulated many residents to excellence. We want gender equality, but with excellence and quality. We are very happy with the women surgeons in our society and in our chapter for your contribution to development the surgery in our country. For the last message to take action. The time is now to support the program HeForShe around the world. Thank you much. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez, and good morning, everyone. I want to thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to share my personal experience and perspectives about such an important topic for me. To begin, I want to contextualize you on Colombian surgery with data from the last national census in 2018. There are 48 million inhabitants in Colombia. Women constitute 51% of the population in a traditional society with very marked patriarchal structures, where female subordination is part of the culture. Women are more educated than men, but they are less economically active during the work stage, and only 30% achieve economic autonomy. 40% of women households are headed by women, with great inequality. 17 average salary difference. Their presence in positions of leadership and power is substantially less. There are invisible barriers and female leadership is little accepted. Disqualification of strong, strict, demanding women is prevalent. And regarding the field of surgery, there are 2,000 surgeons around the country and approximately 35% women among residents and graduate surgeons. In 2020, there is a very low percentage of women in leadership positions. Few women as surgery professors, program directors, chiefs of surgical divisions, or heads of surgical societies and organizations. As a women surgeon in Colombia, my experience has been vastly different than that of my male colleagues. Starting from the beginning of my career 25 years ago, being one of the only female residents in my program, I have grown up in a male-dominated environment. I strongly believe that male mentorship allow me to gain more confidence as a surgeon, to trust my abilities, and to deal with some of the barriers I found mainly culturally ingrained stereotypes that operate in different professional interactions between peers, OR staff, nurses, and that portray women as less competent in fields historically dominated by men. I believe being a woman never held me back from my surgical training, and despite the fact that the residency comes with inflexible schedules and long hours, those were never the issues I faced at that time. My struggles during residency were due to others' perception of me and cultural preconceptions of gender roles that made a difficult environment that put extra demands. Looking back now, I see the impact that male partnership had during that stage of my career. It helped me be part of the boys' club, but in my own feminine way. And since I was progressively treated as an equal, I felt as an equal. As my career developed and I aged, my priorities changed, and they went from being mainly professional to wanting to become a mother and have a family of my own. This brought other challenges, such as learning how to balance my work and personal life, to be there and enjoy every step of my kids' life while still maintaining the status I had acquired over the years. In Colombian traditional culture, women are still seen as housewives first and carry the majority of family responsibilities. So I've always been the different or strange mother at my kids' school. What was in my case prevented me from having limitations for the exercise of my career? I was lucky enough to have an enormous support from my grandparents in raising my children, and also help in all the house duties 24/7, which is customary in Colombia. I did not have to sacrifice my family aspirations to have the career I wanted. However, I firmly believe that the demands of the practice of surgery ask for women surgeons a significant amount of energy, capacity to assume multiple duties, great ability to organize, manage chaos, delegating and setting priorities. And this generates a physical and emotional overload that can be incompatible with well-being and personal development. This is why our profession requires structural changes to address this problem. Later on, when I became a leader in my field, other struggles appeared, similar to other women who occupy those roles in male-dominant fields and violate gender schemes and are punished for behaviors where they seek power, generating rejection, negative interpersonal characterization sometimes. I still have to deal with unconscious bias, disqualifying comments, interruptions when speaking, discriminatory jokes, microaggressions, and men that take credit for my ideas and hardly recognize the contributions of a woman. But the support of some colleagues and the new generations of diverse students, residents, and young surgeons, and also mentors help to balance these difficult moments. Certainly, one of the best parts of my current position is having an audience to speak about what others cannot say. I shall emphasize one underestimated issue. By 2019, women hold a minority of leadership in the health field at the global level, even though we are a numerical majority. So the underrepresentation of women in positions of power and leadership, the underevaluation of women in decision-making scenarios, the gender-based discrimination in everyday work, and the system inequities in recognition of the contributions of women is not a matter that has concluded. I believe female role models are very important in these times, because during my training, I did not have any woman to look up to. I was lucky enough that my male mentor was someone I looked up to, and he became my own role model. But it is undeniable that seeing women in leadership positions motivates young surgeons, and it is a way to strengthen their confidence to pursue those roles. Because of the many challenges that still exist, mentors play a key role for young medical students and residents. We need more HeForShe that achieve the goal of seeing beyond prejudices, overcome implicit bias, and take concrete actions to support their female colleagues and change environments that are still hostile for surgeons, promoting equitable institutional structures, implementing a gender perspective in collegiate decisions. An important step is to talk about the good the bad and the ugly of being a woman in surgery. And since there are many underlying structural problems, education about gender equity is necessary to change attitudes and behavior that should no longer be tolerated and make this needed cultural change happen. Thank you very much.
Thanks to our speakers. We will now hear from Dr. Isabella Frigerio. Dr. Frigerio is a senior consultant pancreatic surgeon at Pedrizzoli Hospital in Italy. She's also the co-founder of Women in Surgery Italia. As a founding governor of my chapter myself, I can attest to the challenges that Dr. Frigerio would have faced in this endeavor, but also to the overwhelming endorsement she would have received from her colleagues. Dr. Frigerio, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Dr. Frigerio, you're muted.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today with you and this amazing international faculty. We talk about gender equity in surgery and the role of men in this apparently never-ending process. If you know what the Global Gender Gap Report is, it's a document from the World Economic Forum ranking out of 153 countries in the world, the gender gap, looking at health, politics, economic, and instruction. Italy, in this ranking, sits at the 76th place. That means that we still have a lot of work to do. Looking at medicine and surgery, in Italy, 75% of medical students are female. 50% of surgical residents are female. But if you look at leadership position, the ratio male to female is 9:1. That means that we still have to deal with glass ceiling or sticky floor. So I repeat, we still have a lot of things to do. And if the question today is why doing the right thing matters, to me, this is the answer. These are not my words. This comes from the Lancet Journal 2019, but it absolutely states what is true to me. Gender equity is not only a matter of justice and rights, it is crucial for producing the best research and providing the best care to patients. If the fields of science, medicine, and global health are to hope towards improving human lives, they must be representative of the societies they serve. The fight for gender equity is everyone's responsibility, and this means that feminism too is for everybody, for men and for women, because until we are not truly equal, we are all diminished. The HeForShe movement, as you said before, was created by UN Women, and I think it is really important to recognize that it's not a matter of women against men. It is not a race for a prize. Women will need men's help because at this time, men have the power to change things, being them the ones who made the rules. I met in my professional life quite a few years before this movement was created, two mentors during my residency. And I had two mentors, female mentors and male mentors as well. My training has been quite genderless. These two mentors gave me the opportunities that I deserved, and not because I was a female. And these opportunities sent me overseas for 1 year, exposed me to high volume pancreatic surgery. That is what I wanted to do. Trained me as a surgeon, not as a female surgeon, and gave me the chance to get international contacts that was useful for me in my future career. During my training, I had the chance to meet these two guys, Dr. Andrew Gams from US and Professor Mohammed Abouillah from Palestine, who became really close friends. And because we grew up together as surgeons, we just were buddies. And they surely gave me the other half part of the world's point of view and vice versa. Regarding gender equity inside the hospital, I think it depends on many factors. But it depends even on what happens outside the hospital, on our society and on our culture. The opportunities you have and the choices you do are strictly connected to the support you receive. Here, there is a couple of pictures of me in Sierra Leone with the surgeon who gave me the strongest support ever. And it happens that this surgeon is my husband too. We couldn't raise 2 children without each other's support, that's for sure. For a few years, I've been the only woman in my unit, but I started seeing many female residents coming to my unit, very passionate and focused in what they wanted to do. I remember one of them in one of those bad days telling me, Isabella, please don't give up because we need you here. And this word was really important to me. Among those female residents, I met my partner in crime, Dr. Gaia Spolverato, a 50-year resident, and we had the crazy idea of founding the first Italian Association of Women Surgeons, supported by the president of the Italian Association of Surgery, a man. And in 5 years, we are known now as a safe place for all the women surgeons in Italy. We have promoted surgical courses through advanced surgical courses offered by societies. And we created a network of other surgical subspecialties. We have one conference, national conference each year, and we exist independently from other surgical societies. And this was a really important achievement. This is our logo, and this is us during our last conference in 2019. In this terrible 2020, in Italy, there was no female representation in the task force to face the pandemic, while 70% of health workers were female. So that's why a group of female scientists, researchers, and surgeons joined in a network asking for female representation in leadership position in the healthcare system. And this was a beautiful HeForShe movement, and here we are. One thing I've learned from others is that inclusion is a real magic word. Professor Tim Polick introduced us to Julie Freischlager when we aimed to create the association, and they both supported the project, gave us advices and instruments to carry on with our ideas. But this might not be enough. From a personal commitment, we need to go further. Professor Kevin Cullen from Dublin made his personal commitment to gender equity becoming a public commitment of the European African Association of Hepatobiliary and Pancreatic Surgery during his time as a president, but more important, he set the basement for the future. And Dr. Molena from Memorial shared her experience with me from Association of Women Surgeons and gave me career advice to build up my professional international profile and to define priorities of Women in Surgery Italia. And if some ask me why other male surgeons should champion the career path of women surgeons, I'd say, why not? Why don't support a valuable surgeon if she's worth it? It is just not a matter of equity as a human right, as we say. It's also a matter of, due to the fact that female surgeons in Italy are 50% of total surgeons, is a matter of offering the best health support to our patients. And it is sure that the butterfly effect that I have experienced in my professional life will go further from myself to others. Benefits I've experienced from being promoted and supported will make me doing the same to other surgeons, female and male surgeons, in many ways, as a surgeon in theater, when organizing the activities in the ward, or in the board or surgical scientific societies when planning conference and inviting speakers. And what I say to my men colleague is to state their position. Be absolutely clear about your position. No misunderstanding regarding supporting your female colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Frigeri, for this presentation. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Malika Tiwari. Dr. Tiwari is the chief of HPB and GI, and she's also a professor of surgical oncology at Banaras Hindu University in India. Dr. Tuar will discuss her unique journey and experience.
Giving me this opportunity and discussing it in this important forum. So I have planned or rather structured my presentation to give you a bird's eye view of the situation of women workforce in India before we go and speak about surgeons as women. So there has been an alarming decrease in women labor work participation rate in India, and it has been quite significant. As you can see, it has dropped from nearly 42% to 23% in a span of 10 to 12 years. This essentially means that 3 out of 4 women are neither working nor seeking employment. And sadly, India is amongst the 10 countries in the bottom list in terms of women workforce. So we have to see India in 2 segments. A large number of women still are in the rural background, and the other is the urban women. If you look into the rural women, we lost about 24.7 million female workers between 2012 and 2018. There are many reasons to it, but some of them include contraction of agricultural land, increase in agricultural mechanization, commercialization of poultry and animal husbandry. Now, all this pushes women back to their houses in unpaid work, as women still in the rural areas have little or no vocational training and digital literacy. Unlike men, they do not travel outside their houses to the nearby cities for employment, and hence we are losing women workforce in the rural area. Contrary to this, and there is some good news that education level in women in our urban cities has marginally, it has improved significantly. And we have more women in white collar jobs. We have maximum number of women pilots, including fighter pilots now. So, but still, as one of the speakers had highlighted, India remains a patriarchal and a patrilocal society. That means that essentially the burden of family, marriage, children, looking after household chores is considered to be a primary responsibility of women. So if we look into the role of surgeon as women, we, like the ACS, we have an Association of Surgeons of India, and this was founded way back in 1938. You can well imagine that in the entire history, we have had only one lady president of the ASI. Currently, we have about 27,000 members, of which not even 3,000 are females. And like the ACS, we also have a governing council, and there have been only 9 females in the last decade. And we have a journal called Indian Journal of Surgery, which is the official journal of our Association of Surgeons of India. And I happen to be the first ever woman editor of the same. So surgery in India still remains a very dominated specialty, which is male dominated. And if we look into women in HPB, oncology, transplant, neurosurgery, cardiothoracic, urology, they can be counted on fingers. Say, for example, when I was a resident in my institute, I was the only female amongst 36 male members. And still the situation isn't very much on the brighter aspect, because we still have about 3 to 4 female residents, surgical residents out of 20 every year. Now, the problem here is that women voluntarily do not opt for these challenging branches and primarily settle in for easier, no offense here, but still cooler branches, because they know their family is something that they will be responsible for, and they don't want to lose out on that. So this, I just put up these pictures because we have an association of surgical oncology. As you can see in the picture, I'm the only executive member who's a lady there. Down we have a state chapter of our Association of Surgeons of India. And then again, I'm the picture of mine as editor of Indian Journal of Surgery amongst the 3 editors who are again male members. Now, I have been very fortunate to have parents and grandparents who have been very, very supportive as far as female education is concerned. My maternal grandfather encouraged my mother, who they actually hail from a very remote village in India, into academics. The result was, of course, she was brilliant, but with his support, she topped all her examinations, medical school, and eventually became the first interventional cardiologist of my state, and moved further and worked with Professor Earl H. Wood at the Mayo Clinic, Rochester. And then she also had a lady mentor, Dr. late S. Padmavati. She was also a cardiologist and helped her groomed her to become a cardiologist. So for me, it was not that difficult a road because of my parents. Both of them have passed away now, but they are the foundation because of which I am what I am. And I had a very good mentor in me in my college. It was Professor H.S. Shukla, who actually not only helped me in my surgical work, encouraged me to join surgical oncology, but also pushed me into academics and standing up for my, interviews and elections. And I was perhaps one of the earliest girls who would stand up and fight elections openly, and one of few of them, of course. And I'm also grateful to all various illustrious men I met along in my career. And there you can see I'm also a pancreatic surgeon like Isabella. And so I wrote a book on pancreatic and periampullary cancer published by Springer, and it has about 23,000 downloads. And I'm grateful to Professor Buechler for writing forward to it. And as an editor of Indian Journal of Surgery, I brought out a special issue on pancreatic surgery. And again, you see Dr. Cameron was generous enough to write forward to it. And then you see all my friends I hanged around with during these various fellowships. Some of them were from the American College as well. And I had some great friends. I enjoy the friendship till date. So, I think, yeah. So I'll just conclude by saying, what's the way forward? As far as India is concerned, I think we have to do a lot of homework, and it starts from home. Still, we have great gender equality when it comes to men and women. So I think parents have a huge task to undertake and inculcate in gender equality at home. Educate girls, not only just educate, but encourage them to be achievers. And patriarchy is something that holds the girls back. And similarly, the society has to encourage women and, not to take them as a working woman, some sort of a stigma that she wouldn't be able to manage work and home, something like that, and give them safety and dignity. Our government is doing some exemplary work, especially with PM Modi around. We have a slogan called Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, which essentially means educate the girl child and save the girl child. Governmental, policies like increasing the paid maternity leave, upskilling women, creating more job opportunities for women in the rural areas, enabling women to get some easy bank loans so that they can start their own small business, and some reservations also in village council elections. So I feel we have a long road to go, but we are on the right track. And hopefully all we need as women is just the right opportunities without any bias, not looking at her height or, how she looks or presents herself, but her technical skills. So that is all that matters, I hope. And we'll have a good gender neutral society where everybody can progress. Thank you so much for your patient hearing.
I sure hope so, Dr. Tiwari. Thank you very much for your presentation. I would like to introduce Dr. Hani. Thank you. I would like to introduce Dr. Hani Al-Qadi. Dr. Al-Qadi is a senior consultant trauma surgeon at Sultan Qaboos University in Oman. He's also the chairman of the General Surgery Residency Training Program of Oman Medical Specialty Board. I have personally witnessed Dr. Al-Qadi as an outspoken defendant for women surgeons' role, progress, and advancement. And today he will share with us his story. Dr. Al-Qadi.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction, Dr. Hiba. Just share my presentation. Here. All right, so thank you very much again. I am very grateful to be part of this excellent panel of leaders of surgery around the world. Just a few points and introduction about Oman. Our modern renaissance started in 1970 with the late Sultan of Oman, Sultan Qaboos. May he rest in peace. Took over in 1970. And if you imagine from 1970 until 1999, there were only 7 Omani fully trained Omani surgeons in these subspecialties, and none of them was a female. After 1990 and then until 2007, Oman started sending residents abroad, and especially to Canada. In Canada, we had 7 residents who went to McGill University, and 1, that was me, who went to the University of British Columbia. Out of these 8, 2 were female surgeons. 1 specialized in pediatric surgery, and the other is in surgical oncology. The first arrival out of these 8 surgeons came in 2006. Now, coincidentally, in 2006, Oman started the official board of training. It's called Oman Medical Specialty Board. It was based on the North American model of residency training in all specialties. We had our general surgery program, which consisted of basically the education committee that controls the program proceedings. And it has a chairman, a program director, and assistant program directors, as well as 10 other members in the education committee. The program is a 5-year training program, just like in North America. 2 years of junior residency and or junior training, and 3 years of senior training. Our program is also accredited by the ACGMI. Now, what were the challenges in appointing or attracting female residents to the program? First of all, we had to train the trainers to accept the concept of training female residents. That really required a lot of culture change practices. And zero tolerance of showing any signs of intolerance to the presence of females in surgery. We did face a lot of skepticism when we introduced the idea of accepting females in the general surgery program. And disparaging comments as well, and undermining of females as the weak gender. So on and so forth. The education committee and the directors of the Oman Medical Specialty Board were very steadfast in diminishing those thoughts and changing the culture of these trainers to be accepting for training female surgeons and treating residents without looking at the gender. Now, the other challenge was attracting the best residents. Now, when I arrived from Canada in 2007, all the top and the best residents used to go to internal medicine for some reason. So that made me very, very upset, and made my colleagues as well very upset. So we started a movement to attract the best residents and also the female residents. So how did we do that? Basically, they call it brainwashing. We don't call it brainwashing, we call it role modeling. So we had to be role models for all the residents and made the environment in the general surgery training program attractive to the brilliant and dedicated medical students. When they graduate, made them want to join this healthy environment of general surgery training. The other thing was respect. So we had to respect each other first, and then respect our trainees. The moment you show respect to your trainees, then you're going to attract the best minds, because best minds know where they're going to thrive and where they're going to grow. And they understand that if they are respected, they will do more and they will perform better. And finally, dialogue. Dialogue, we needed to have an open door policy for all the female residents, medical students or interns who think about joining surgery program. They need to come and talk to you. So you have to open the door and speak to them, guide them, counsel them, because of this idea that if you are a female and you join a surgery program, then your life will be ruined. You will not have a family. You will not have a career. Your kids will be on drugs or something. I don't know what they say about female surgeons and the life as a surgeon. And actually, we showed them that we actually, as surgeons, we have the best lifestyle among all the other colleagues in other programs. Also, our female colleagues, when they came back, they were treated with much respect, and they also had families, and none of them were affected negatively by being a surgeons. So when we had that dialogue, you reassure the people that you want them to join your program and make them feel comfortable joining surgery. Now, the other thing is that now after you attract those bright minds, so from 2010 until 2020, all the top students, whether males or females, in all the medical schools in Oman, they joined general surgery, which made other people very jealous of the general surgery residency program. Now, once you attract them, you have to be consistent, and you have to sustain this. Otherwise, you won't sustain this success. So what we do is we show them appreciation. This is a picture of the annual welcome dinner, which I host in my house. I invite all the residents to my house as the annual welcome dinner. And it became a tradition. We're the only program that does this. Nobody does that for their residents. This is at the beginning, just to welcome them. And then all through the program, we are very, very supportive. We are the most supportive, according to the residents, we are the most supportive group of surgeons and a group of doctors compared to the other specialties in the programs. The last thing is career guidance. So a lot of these residents, they come to you and they want to guide, they want guidance, and they want to know what is in it for them in the future, and is it going to affect their family, their lifestyle. So you have to guide them and see, see their needs and their requirements, and accordingly help them. So all of us in this general surgery training program are very much supportive and guiding our residents. Now, this is just a snapshot of all the trainees that were accepted in the general surgery program. And if you notice that the males were more than the females until around 2011, where we started having actually more females joining the general surgery program compared to males. And total, since the beginning or since the inception of the program, we had 100 accepted residents in general surgery. 44 were males and 56 were females. So we're actually having more females than males. So did they drop out? How many girls or boys dropped out of our program? Only 6 out of 56 females dropped out, 3 for personal reasons, 2 because they just decided to change their career, and 1 because she had a low performance, so we had to stop her from the training. While in males, sorry, the other slide is males, not females. 44 males, out of the 44 males, 4 dropped out. So it's about 10% dropout in both groups. So there's no difference between males and females in terms of dropping out. Scholarships. So we don't only train the residents in Oman, we also send them abroad for training. We send them mainly to Canada and also to France, as well as the UK. Now, if you look at the number of scholars that we have sent, out of the 100 we accepted in our program, 36 were sent abroad. Out of these 36, 22 went to Canada and 13 went to France, and only 1 went to the UK. Now, if you look at the ones who went to Canada, you find 14 females went to Canada and 8 males. So more females are going even abroad. In France, there is more males than females, but 5 females have gone to France. Now, of mention, out of all the residents, we actually have 5 couples, husband and wife, who are residents in our program, and they have kids, and they're very, very happy in the program. They did not have a shattered family, and they did not do badly. Now, with regards to the female surgeons that are training abroad, I just wanted to mention that they didn't only do well, they actually did very well. We had here Dr. Al-Ghali Al-Ma'wali, who was chosen as the best resident graduating from the University of British Columbia in Canada. And I was actually invited to go to UBC to give her her reward. They were very, very proud of her. And the other one is Dr. Safiya Al-Masrouri, who was also chosen as the best resident in McGill University training program. upon their graduation. So they don't only do well, they do exceptionally well, actually. If you look at these are all the specialties that are training. We have 4 pediatric surgery females abroad, 2 actually hepatobiliary and transplant. This is the first. That will come as first female hepatobiliary transplant. We have 2 also training in trauma surgery, which is my specialty, and they will come as the first female trauma surgeons in Oman. And also thoracic surgery. We have 1 that is training in thoracic surgery, which is very, very demanding. And she will be also the first female thoracic surgeon to come to Oman. Now, do we have a glass ceiling? For those who don't know what a glass ceiling is, basically women join, but they are prevented from achieving leadership positions. Actually, we don't have that. The Oman Surgical Society elected the 3rd president, and it was a female, Dr. Zainab al-Balushi, seen here. So she was elected as the president of the Oman Surgical Society. So she's the current president of the Oman Surgical Society, and she's a female. The head of the surgery department in Sultan Qaboos University Hospital, where I work, and it's the biggest university hospital in Oman, actually the only, but the biggest teaching hospital in Oman. I was the 3rd head of the department, and when I finished my time as an HOD, my successor was actually Dr. Zainab al-Balushi herself, and she became the 4th head of the surgery department in our university hospital. She's the current head of surgery. And this is not head of general surgery, this is head of surgery, all surgery, including all the other specialties, cardiac surgery, etc., etc. In addition, we have the new Sultan Qaboos Comprehensive Cancer Center, which is a state-of-the-art cancer center that is going to be opened in 2021, very, very soon. And the surgery department there, the head of the general surgery is a female, that is Dr. Maha Al-Shaibi, seeing here next to Dr. Zainab. And she is going to be she's a surgical oncologist trained in McGill and Toronto. And she is now leading the surgery department in this new cancer center in Oman. So in summary, surgical training in Oman has evolved. We have more females joining, and they're very, very happy in the program because they feel respected, they feel understood, and they feel supported at all time. For them, pregnancy is not a problem, is not a disease, it's not something that affects their performance. We appreciate if they're pregnant, we help them, and if they deliver, it is not a problem. We don't make them feel guilty. Because that is what the anti-gender equality, use to disparage females. So gender bias is a myth that we have defeated in our program, and it is not acceptable. We have 0 tolerance to discrimination between males and females in our program. And the worst enemy, of course, is when these amazingly talented surgeons graduate from our program to have a glass ceiling, and we have worked very, very hard to break the glass ceiling, because it will be the worst enemy for any progress for gender equality between men and females and male surgeons. With that, I end my presentation, and thank you very much.
Truly amazing presentation, Dr. Al-Qadi. I really liked your part when you said that pregnancy is not a disease. I wish we could apply this across the board. A truly amazing set of presentations. This concludes our presentations. I would like to open the floor for any questions.
Thank you all for the presentations. I mean, I'm sitting here and watching in awe at everything you've all done. You've definitely shattered a lot of glass ceilings, and I think there's many more still left to be shattered. And hopefully, all we can hope is in 15 years we don't have to have panels like these, because it became an irrelevant issue. I doubt it will, but I certainly hope so from the depth of my heart. We actually have a lot of good comments and a lot of good questions from the audience, and I even wrote a few questions myself. But here's one that from Dr. Jan Juneka, the vascular surgeon from Santa Cruz in California. It's directed to Dr. Frigorio. It says, doesn't having a separate gender-based society in some ways undermine the goal of equality? I can only imagine the uproar if there was men in surgery society. So Dr. Frigorio, I'll have you answer this question. It is definitely kind of stirring a little bit of issues, but I'll let you answer it, and maybe we'll go around and you guys can give answers to that specific question.
Okay, I'm not sure of what she means or he means by saying that we have a separate gender-based society. If I understand what's the meaning, I'd say that every action that a society needs to take should not be directed only to female, because this would generate other than inclusion and promotion of diversity. Every action that should be taken from a society needs to be directed to all, and to all means to the system. That's why we need a complete changement in the cultural setting of our society. It should not be intervention directed only to female. Don't know if I answered to the question, but if I understand, that's what I mean.
Does anybody want to answer? I mean, we do have actually almost a discussion happening. Dr. Tanaz Ferzandi answered the question saying, I would humbly offer that medicine, specifically the surgical specialties, have been bastions for men, and in most cases, white men. Being raised in the US, this has been the case, and being told early on that if I wanted to be a surgeon, I should choose a female field. Having these designations sheds light on the issues we face. Let's hope that the generation that follows me finds it a moot discussion and dispenses within the categories, but we are not there yet. And I'd like to add something to it, and then, you know, perhaps the rest of you say is, you know, people who, with all due respect, and I don't know where the background of the question is coming from, but it really takes effort to, if you are in a position of privilege, that you were born in a certain position of privilege, to understand it from the side of people who are subject to discrimination. In this case, gender discrimination. You know, having a society that allows the privilege to stay within the privilege is a very different than having a society that is trying to actually stand up against the privilege that exists and the structural biases that we have in our own systems. I don't know if Dr. Al-Qadi, Dr. Teregresa, Dr. Abdulaziz, or anybody wants to take this question before we move to the next question.
Yeah, sure. For me, as issue, people look at the leaders, and leaders should have zero tolerance to gender bias and gender discrimination. Not even as a joke, it's not allowed. And when they see the leaders treat female surgeons with respect and respect their leadership, once they are leaders or above us, then they start changing. It's a cultural thing that it has to change, and it has to come from the top. Now, even if somebody has bad thoughts or regressive thoughts, these thoughts will be suppressed and pushed back in their brain once they see that the leaders are respecting the female surgeons.
All right, I'm actually gonna move to the second question. It's from Dr. Elizabeth Santos from Brazil, and the question is, what should I say? Let me read it. What can I say to a male intern who I notice is acting with prejudice to his female colleagues? I'm gonna give this question to Dr. Teregresa.
Well, I think as leaders, we need to educate the next generations, because sometimes they don't even know about some implicit bias or some gender-specific issues that they do on a regular basis because they are cultural, they are immersed in a cultural background that promotes those comments, sometimes jokes that affect very much. And I have found that many of the young colleagues in Colombia said to me, oh, I didn't know about that. It is good that you are talking about this and you educate us. And also a more senior surgeons told me about that. They say, we thought it was a matter of time and the numbers are increasing, so you are gonna be majority, so it's no longer an issue, the disparity, but it is not true. And the equity demands affirmative and positive actions toward a group that has a less opportunity and still has a less opportunity and a glass ceiling. So I think education is very important, and in an everyday, it's an everyday work, and it's our role to educate others and spread all those words, and that changes a lot. In Colombia, it is working very, very well, the education effort, but of course we have a lot of work to do.
I would like to make some comments in this way. The most important, the key is the education. I agree with Dr. Torregrosa, but I think that it's very important the role modeling, mentoring, with the sample, with the action. We teach with the future generation about the respect, the quality, the excellence, the support. I think that this is important, the mentoring we model to follow.
Can I also have maybe Dr. Tiwari, would you like to answer this question? I think, what do we say to a colleague that we witness having prejudice against female residents or female surgeons? I need you to be off mute, Dr. Tiwari.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yes, yeah, thank you. So I wanted to share a personal experience in this, because when I was a surgical resident, I was the only girl amongst 30 boys. So we, during our presentations, what these boys used to do, buddy politics, and they used to present the cases amongst themselves. So even if it was my turn, my day to present a case, they would jump in and present a case. So it went on for a while, and then one day I decided to take the issue to the head of the department. And here comes the role of a leader, and the head of the department immediately took note of it, and he made a strict timetable and advised everyone to follow that timetable. So automatically that bias and that bullying, what should I say, is not a right word to say, but it happened. So it happens. So whenever it happens, so I think those who are in a commanding position, who are teachers, who are, the leader in the group, they have to take it and make things very clear that this cannot be tolerated.
That's great.
I mean, it should never be encouraged.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. I'm going to move to the next question. I actually think it's a very interesting question. It's directed to the female surgeons on our panel. So maybe one by one, we can briefly answer this question. And it's an anonymous attendee, so I don't know who asked it, but it says, how do you as female surgeons feel about men usurping the HeForShe movement for their own career gains instead of actually promoting their female colleagues? Maybe we start with Dr. Tiwari and we go around.
With due respect, I don't think I would agree with the same, because I've had my mentor who actually, made me into a fighting, rather, he encouraged me to be in the game. And I was never discriminated in any way during my surgical residency, except for those petty things I told you that happens during the residency presentations. But by and large, the men I have met, even my colleagues, my seniors, they have all been very supportive. So exceptions are always there, and you need to understand them and move ahead. But by and large, I think men like women to be progressive. And see, a lot depends on the woman herself. If she's passionate about it, determined about it, I think nobody can stop her. So I would put it that way.
I do think women, most women, and definitely better than men, are very good at knowing, at seeing sincerity when it's there, and knowing when it's not sincere. But maybe Dr. Frigerio, and then Dr. Torregresa, and maybe actually Dr. Abdulaziz can comment too.
If this really happens, I think that we have to be smarter than them. What I used to do, and this is just my personal attitude, is to stand still and make open questions about bad behavior that I see regarding, for example, this topic. And usually this individual cannot give me an answer or have an explanation. So they just retire in silence. So this is what usually happens. Not always, but usually.
Well, in my experience, I haven't seen that yet. Maybe I haven't seen it. I received a lot of support of many mentors and partners, and of course there are some he against she, as I said, but there are more he for she. And as you said, we can identify sincerity in those male colleagues, but I haven't seen that that in my experience. I think we are, as in Colombia, we are in like an earlier step in the surgical field about the he and she movement. From the Colombian Surgical Society, we are educating about this movement. So the colleagues that are doing affirmative actions toward the female colleagues really are sincere about their interests, and they put a special effort doing the right thing about us. So I haven't seen that yet.
Dr. Abdulaziz, briefly,
Yeah.
I have another
Sure.
question lined up.
Sure, yes. So I just wanted to say, interestingly enough, I was totally shielded from any gender inequality during my residency, because I had a female, a great program director, the late Dr. Debbie Graham. But the mentors that I had who were males were truly excellent and sincere. And as you mentioned, Haitham, it's very easy to tell from a female standpoint who's sincere and who's not. But I have heard rumblings, though, talking to females, that there has been issues that what's echoed by our anonymous audience member in his question. There has been some feelings that there were men out there who was using this movement to advance their own careers. And I just would like to caution our male mentors and male sponsors and supporters of the HeForShe movement that you truly, if you take upon this movement, people expect you to be very fearless and fierce and really go the extra, not just mile, the extra 10 miles to try and provide that support.
Right.
Very true statement.
Sorry,
go ahead, Dr. Sanchez.
Yes, thank you. My wishing is that in the near future, we will not have to fall to meeting with this subject. But I am very optimistic because you can see in Oman, in Italy, and in Colombia, of course, improve the participation, the women participation in our surgery department. The idea is the HeForShe movement is a movement for all, not only for the women, it's for all. The humanity need a equilibrium, and in the surgery, we need the equilibrium with the more participation of the women in our departments and in our university, in all aspects of the medicine.
Thank you. Dr. Abdelaziz, there's a question for you, which you can maybe quickly answer from Dr. Patricia Newman, somebody I have the utmost respect for. She says, great conference, Hiba. What are your plans to publish these presentations, bulletin, symposium, JACs, or other ways? Very briefly, I have 10 seconds for this one.
Yes, I think we should definitely go ahead with publishing these presentations. They turned out to be amazing and exceeded all of our expectations. And I think it's a movement that we definitely need to keep going, Dr. Newman. You started a big part of it, and we need to continue.
All right, next question I'm gonna send to Dr. Al-Qadi. It's from an anonymous attendee. It says, a lot of literature has come forward describing significant gender pay discrepancy, and it has not gotten much better even with how much it has been highlighted of late. What specific actions do you advise apart from bringing attention to it with your departments? And do you think it is effective? You have 1 minute for this question.
Well, thank you very much. This is not a problem at all in Oman, because pay in Oman is salary based, and it's not based on gender. It's based on position. So if you're a consultant, you take the same salary whether you're male or female. So there's no gender bias in terms of pay. Now, in other societies, it really depends on the structure of the legislative hierarchy. So if you have like a Congress, or you have leaders of the community, these are the ones who should speak up. Or you can organize movements and kind of, if you're like based on what do you call the guild, like the doctors guild or the doctors association, then they can even go for strikes to bring along the equality in pay. But my point is the leaders of the medical field should buy into the concept of equality between genders. If there's a problem in the leadership, then there's going to be a problem cascading down the system. So it starts with choosing the best leader to lead the medical community.
All right, got another good question. I'm gonna give it to Dr. Teregresa. It says, what do the panelists suggest as ways female surgeons can rectify the issues of always being identified as nurses students or being undermined by nursing leadership in committees? Example, nurses listening more to male surgeons than females, or attributing their ideas to male surgeons. I'm gonna also give you 30 seconds for this question so we can go through all questions.
Well, I think this needs a cultural change that is difficult in some countries or some parts of the world, because they're used to see men as the dominant in their family and also in the real life outside the hospital. So it is difficult for some people. So that's why I emphasized on education in other communities, not only in the surgical, in the medical community, but also in the hospital and the work environment. We talk about those issues of gender bias, and they learned a lot about that. And they know that we feel undermined by their comments, their jokes, their behaviors. And that's the way to make a change that is gonna take a little bit longer, because it is a cultural problem that we see in some societies that are more male dominated and that have structures similar to that we have in a male dominant field of surgery.
Right, we're coming to an end. There's one question that I really think is good. I'm gonna give to Dr. Tawari, if that's okay with you. And it's coming from Dr. Eva Fuentes. She says, how do we encourage equal job, personal life balance in men, women, when in many countries, including and maybe especially in the US, maternity leave is not mandatory? But even, I'm gonna add to this question, even paternity leave does not exist to a big extent, and childcare is expensive. What can training programs or jobs do to ameliorate this problem? You have 30 seconds, Dr. Tawari.
Right. So these are policy decisions which have to be taken at the highest level by the government. We recently in India increased the maternity leave from like 12 weeks to 26 weeks, and it is a paid leave. Now, what happens here, it is again taken in a negative way by the employers because the entire brunt of this economic impact goes on the employers. So there has to be a balance, like in many societies, half of it is shared by the government and half of it by the employers. So essentially, there have to be flexible hours of work so that when the child is growing up, women can really coordinate. And if they get pregnant between the residencies, they should not be made to feel guilty about it, as some speakers has already illustrated. And that break should not hamper the career prospects. And again, as an Indian society, this patriarchy and patri-local, what I mean by patri-local is that women migrate to the husband's place of work after marriage. Place of residence. So that is also something that needs to be looked into because both of them have to work together because each of their careers is important. So it is a change that comes from home to society and then back to the government at every step.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Tawari. That's fantastic. Unfortunately, we're coming to an end. I wish we have a lot more. I'm going to give this back to Dr. Abdulaziz, who really is the brainchild again of this panel, and let her conclude the panel.
Before I conclude, I just would like to say that I thoroughly enjoyed this. This was great. It was awesome. It was amazing to have all our great panelists here with us and great interaction and questions from our audience. I would like to salute all our panelists for their devotion, their valor and voice, and thank them for sharing their enlightening, endearing, and inspirational stories. To our audience, thank you for joining us in our quest to explore the importance and impact of coming together, working together, and being there for each other. I hope we all choose to do the right thing. Thanks to you all, and stay safe.
Thank you.
And just as a concluding remark, this webinar will be available on demand afterwards, but we also encourage you to please share ideas for future webinars and resources on the HeForShe movement. This is just the first webinar that we're going to offer in a series, and we are also plan to offer a lot of different resources. So please email me at kmccann@facs.org or my colleague Tony Ortiz at tortiz@facs.org with your ideas. We love to collect them and work with the committee to develop the right resources that you need to continue this conversation. Thank you.